If so, join WHAV in thanking the board, staff, and members of your local public access channel.
Catch the wave!
This is Jim Hightower, asking you to listen to my Little Pops of Populism 3 times a day, right here on WHAV. Only local radio at its finest. WHAV brings you this populist feature. So catch the wave, and you'll catch my commentaries. Thank you.
Wave weather!
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with wave weather. Now we're going to go through tonight, clear to partly cloudy. There could be some coastal fog, lows in the low 60s. Now Tuesday, there might be a little sun to start the day off, but a cold front will be marching in from the west. We'll see some showers and thunderstorms, especially in the afternoon. Some of these could be pretty strong too. Highs will be around 85. Tuesday night, showers and storms will end early. We'll clear out after that, drop to around 60. And then we got sunshine for Wednesday with a high in the upper 70s. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tim Coco, and this is the Open Mic Show, a 50-year staple of democracy in the Merrimack Valley. This hour of Open Mic being brought to you by Haverhill Bank, just one bank. All right, folks, I apologize for last week, just before broadcast, and those of you who have back problems will understand this, but I had a muscle spasm. I could barely move or walk, and therefore no notice of closing the show or even getting a replacement. It happened all that fast. So please accept my apologies, and to be honest with you, I didn't expect Haverhill Community Television to run the dead picture for 2 hours because sometimes they need to be prodded to run it at all. But I really do appreciate Haverhill Community Television carrying the Open Mic Show, and I really appreciate your viewing or listening. And speaking of how to do either of those, you can watch and listen to the Open Mic Show for the next 2 hours at www.whav.tv on your computer or smartphone. You can also watch on Haverhill Community Television Channel 22. Now, WHAV is much more than just 2 hours of video on a Monday night. In fact, you can listen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at WHAV.net on your computer or smartphone. In fact, WHAV.tv works as well. And you can listen on AM 1640 in northern Haverhill, Plastow, and Atkinson, New Hampshire. And on cable television, you can listen usually behind the audio behind the bulletin board. So Andover, Channel 8, Methuen, Channels 8 and 22 on Comcast, Channel 32 on Verizon Fios. In Plastow, Channels 17 and 23, Sandown, Channel 17. Now, WHAV was supposed to begin airing before noon and after 10 p.m. on Channel 99, the education channel operated by Haverhill Community Television. The school department does not program that station prior to 10 a.m. or prior to noon or after 10 p.m., but Haverhill Community Television operates the station, and apparently they've decided to just fill the schedule 24 hours. So I'm not sure if you'll hear WHAV on Channel 99. But nevertheless, we do thank those in Andover, Methuen, Plastow, and Sandown for carrying WHAV on cable television. Coming up after the news at 7:05, special guest Dan McGraw. Speaking of HCTV, you may recall or may watch Dan McGraw on his own program called Perspectives on Channel 22. If you've been paying attention, you may have noticed that Dan McGraw appeared before the Haverhill City Council recently to propose the city change its charter. Since 1967, went into effect in 1968, Haverhill has been under the Plan A form of government. Plan A is what is known as the strong mayor. Essentially, the state provided a handful of charters, and cities and towns could just grab one and use it as is, or they could modify it to meet their needs. Lawrence, for example, modified a form of the charter so that they do have a strong mayor, but a longer term, but with more confirmations by the city council. Haverhill just really took an off-the-shelf copy of Plan A and implemented it as is. Dan McGraw makes the case that it is deeply flawed because if you live in certain neighborhoods without a city councilor, chances are your needs aren't being met. Haverhill City Councilors argue, I think Bill Masick in particular argues that that's not true, that most city councilors, if not all of them, represent every neighborhood all the time. And therefore, if someone in, say, Ward 1 has a concern, then the city councilor, even living in Bradford or Riverside or Ward Hill, what have you, will respond to that need. But I think I'm going to ask Dan McGraw, what if a resident in Ward 1, and I'm using Ward 1 for a particular reason. Ward 1 is downtown and the acre. What if a resident doesn't call a city councilor? Is there someone in that neighborhood who is going to look out for the interests? And my concern is that I used to live in Ward 1 years ago. I owned the former Primrose Street schoolhouse, and I found that almost everything that was considered undesirable got placed in Ward 1. Now, I'm not saying these things are actually undesirable. There's certainly a need for many, but almost everything ended up in Ward 1, whether it was a soup kitchen, whether it was low-income housing, whether it was, as we just saw, a proposal for Hale Street for medical marijuana. Almost everything undesirable ends up in Ward 1. And I take city councilors at their word, and I believe them, that if they do hear a complaint, they will most certainly respond to it. But what about someone on the ground? You know, it used to be Haverhill had many neighborhood associations, but I don't know what it is. People are too busy. They work too many hours. They don't care. I hope that's not the case. I don't know which it is, but that is a possible reason for this. Now, I understand, and I've been meaning to give him a call. I understand someone is starting another neighborhood association in the Arlington Street area. Wouldn't be the first time, but I do think, and I really want to hear what you, the listener, thinks about Haverhill's neighborhoods. Should every neighborhood have a representative on the city council? And if not, then how do we get information about each neighborhood to the city council? Whether it's a sidewalk that should be repaired, a pothole that should be filled, whether I'm sure most of you in, let me say, the better neighborhoods, you find out, you get a little letter in the mail from the city saying that an applicant is asking for a variance for a particular project. Recently, for example, Riverside, there was a used car issue, and all the neighbors receive a notice because they're abutters to that, and they came in force, you might say, and defeated that. Whether you agree or disagree with how the council acted or whether those neighbors who showed up in force did the right thing or the wrong thing, the issue is that we saw representation in that neighborhood. But do we ever see representation in other neighborhoods? Do we hear, for example, from someone on Primrose Street or White Street if a used car lot's going there? I'm sure those notices are mailed, but chances are they're being mailed to landlords and not residents. So, and even let's take downtown. Very large apartment complexes have been built recently, but even before that, we had the old standbys, Phoenix Row, the Washington Block. But does the housing authority or Bethany that owns Phoenix Row get those notices, and do they share them with neighbors so that they can protest if something undesirable is proposed for downtown? I suspect not, and I don't think it's anything insidious. I think it's something that concerns people. Because they don't have time or what have you. I do want to take a moment, though, to acknowledge two people in Master Control, and I'm going to introduce these two people on the air. In Master Control, we have Chris Porter, who's he's like DJs everywhere, WMEX, Open up your microphone. Tell me these stations you work for.
WXBJ in Salisbury.
And you've been at WCCM for special programming.
Yes.
And WMFO in Medford, Tufts University.
Yes. So many.
Chris, now also we have a new intern at WHAV for the summer, Maddie Karen, and you know what I'm going to do? So I'm introducing Maddie and Chris, but I'll tell you what, right after the break, I'm going to have Maddie Karen come in and tell us about what she's doing at WHAV. So she's going to quickly make a list. No, you don't have to make a list. But we'll have Maddie Karen on right after the break. And Chris is going to be absolutely shocked because I usually go over the break, but I'm going to go under this time. Let's take a brief break. This hour, we're going to hear mass moments this day in Massachusetts history. Then we're going to come back and interview intern Maddie Karen and Madeline, if you want to be formal. And then at 7:05, after the local news, Dan McGraw is going to be here talking about Haverhill's neighborhoods and perhaps the need for a new city charter. Take it away, Chris.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
Your donations enable WHAV to remain local and independent. Consider giving what you can afford at whav.net.
Catch the wave!
Those political sound bites you hear on the news are, at best, incomplete and could be misleading or even outright lies. This is David Pakman. Take time to delve into the truth by listening to The David Pakman Show, Tuesday through Friday nights at 8 on WHAV. Lack of logic and reason are exposed on The David Pakman Show as newsmakers collapse under cross-examination. Remember, only local radio can bring you this talk opportunity, but only WHAV does.
Today is June 22nd. On this day in 1946, water flowed over the spillway and officials declared Quabbin Reservoir full. Construction took more than 20 years and required the obliteration of 4 towns in the Swift River Valley. More than 1,000 structures were dismantled: homes, barns, churches, schools, and stores. Workers painstakingly removed over 7,600 graves and reinterred the dead in a new cemetery. When it was completed, Quabbin was the largest man-made reservoir in the world. Today it is the principal source of drinking water for people in 46 metropolitan Boston communities. To ensure the quality of the water, the state has protected over 56,000 acres of surrounding land. The result is one of the largest and most diverse wilderness areas in Massachusetts. For more about this and other Mass Moments, go online to massmoments.org. Brought to you by the Massachusetts Foundation for the Humanities.
WHAV
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And welcome back to the Open Mic Show. This hour of Open Mic being brought to you by Haverhill Bank. Just one bank. All right, before we get to this quarter-hour guest, Madeline, or Maddie as she likes to be called, Karen, WHAV intern for the summer. Let me just remind you, if you're just tuning in, at 7:05, right after the news, we're going to have Dan McGraw here, and he's going to be discussing his ideas for a City of Haverhill charter change. I want you to give some thought to that, because I believe during the City Council meeting a couple of weeks ago, City Council President John Mitchison mentioned he tried to do this in 1999, had trouble getting enough signatures. It's a big job. But how many of you remember, maybe another 20 years before that, I believe Steve Sardella tried a charter change petition in the early 80s. I wonder if anyone knows Steve and wants to give him a call and coax him in calling in the program after 7:05. Or perhaps, Steve, you're watching right now. Okay, WHAV is a non-profit educational corporation. So, in keeping with that mission, a student, Maddie, as she likes to be called, is here for the summer. Maddie, why don't you tell people what school you're going to and what city you live in?
So I'm from Andover, Massachusetts, and I'm going to St. Michael's College in Vermont. I'm a rising senior in the fall, and I'm studying sociology and media journalism.
Sociology and media journalism. Now, I think that's an interesting combination. Now, you and I have privately discussed this, but do you want to talk to the audience about how you ended up with that major and that minor?
Yeah, so I actually came into St. Michael's with a journalism major, and then I tried out sociology, and I realized that I didn't have enough time to complete a journalism major because I didn't take enough classes. So I decided that I would go with sociology and just keep the minor at journalism. And it actually works out really well, going hand in hand together. So it's definitely worked out for me.
All right, well, that's very good. Now, you've only been here a couple of days so far, but why don't you tell listeners at home what it's like. You're working in the WHAV newsroom on a couple of things. Tell people what your experiences have been so far. But what have you learned writing and rewriting? Because unfortunately, she has me around, who is always trying to deadline pressure of a newsroom, getting things on. But you've been on the air now since Friday night. Your community spotlight. Tell people what it's like to write a community spotlight, research one, and then read one.
Yeah. So I went on a bunch of the different pages of groups around the area, and I found a bunch of events and then wrote them up, and I realized that there's a different way to write it. I looked through the AP style book, and I definitely...
AP, folks, is Associated Press.
Yeah, I had to correct a lot of what was already written regarding punctuation and just different things. For example, for a state, for mass, it would be MASS period.
That's right.
And so I had to do a bunch of that. And then when I was done, I did my first recording, which was really fun. And I did that a few times to kind of get the hang of it. And then I guess I was on the air.
And you were helped by Mark LeMay,
Mark.
former WHAV news director, who is always offering a helpful hand. Yes. If you've noticed, he's doing some community spotlights, too, for WHAV this summer. Now, we talked, you remember the reason why, and I think our listeners might be interested in this. If you, we'll start with the newspaper listeners. Oftentimes you can't tell how something is written when you hear it on the radio, although WHAV's website, whav.net, shows those same stories, usually much more detail in the text format. But you remember the reasons why Associated Press uses different abbreviations than maybe the post office, or other reasons why we leave out certain commas and so on?
Back when they were writing them, they didn't have enough. They didn't have enough room to put certain things, so they cut out like a comma, for example, or a certain
That's right,
letter.
folks. Part of it was to squeeze more into newspapers, but even another part of it, you may find this interesting. There was a day, and unfortunately, it really wasn't that long ago, newspapers were laid out with lead type, and every character cost money. So to put in a comma between a person's name and Junior, or between a company name and Incorporated, used up a piece of lead type, which one was time consuming if it was a hand composing room, as they were called, composing rooms. They would put in individual pieces of type. Later on, there were systems like linotype that actually poured molten lead into molds to make the pages. But so Associated Press style is a little bit different. And those of you out there who either sit in English classes now or in the past, or perhaps are an English instructor yourself, or an instructor of English, as I've been reminded, because not all teachers are British. If they teach English, they are instructors of English, not English instructors. But the subtleties of the language. But they would probably cringe at what they see in news copy, and unfortunately it's done for entirely different reasons. In some cases, postal abbreviations, it does confuse people when they see Missouri, M-O, or Mississippi, or other Massachusetts, because it's only 2 letters. So AP uses longer styles like MASS, period. All right. What did you think of recording using the software?
Yeah, I thought it was a really fun experience. It was weird to hear myself back and like hear my first recording, but when Mark put it in with the like do WHAV, it sounded awesome because it sounded like so official. And I had been hearing those, like you and other people do those on the radio when I would listen to them on the website, and then to actually hear myself do it was like really cool. So that's
amazing.
My favorite part of the day, I think.
It's amazing what music in the background, it changes the whole feeling,
it just
doesn't
sounds like so official and so professional. So
what do you hope to accomplish at WHAV this summer?
I definitely hope to learn more about the producing of radio and to really work on speaking and doing announcements, and so hopefully I'll get better and more trained at the end so that I'm more polished.
Well, you're not as nervous as I expected you to be for the open mic show. She did not know. She knew she had to be here. She didn't know why.
I didn't know.
And then she was even more shocked to find out that it's on television for some people, or on the computer for others. Those of you listening on radio, well, you'll just have to imagine a student. So you're a senior, going into your senior
I'll be a
year.
senior in the fall, yeah.
In the radio studio. All right. And then what are your plans? Or is that, are you one of those students who's not really sure what you're going to do after you graduate?
Oh, geez. I'm not really sure. Something that has to do with journalism now, hopefully. So I'll continue this.
You told me you actually might have an interest in sports.
Potentially. I'm a big Boston sports fan, so.
Hear that, listeners? Big Boston sports fan.
Yeah.
Is there anyone out there who isn't? Come on. All right. So do you go to baseball games or football games? What do you...
I'm not really into football. I like baseball. I like basketball a lot. I was watching the NBA Finals, even though the Celtics weren't in them, but it was fun.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I see you gradually let your voice trail out on that
Yeah.
one. So you're not happy about the Celtics or with the Celtics?
Not happy with them, but that's okay. There's always next year. Occasionally,
sports news becomes regular news. So have you don't really follow football, or you're aware of what's going on with
when the
Tom
Patriots
Brady?
when they're doing well, I like it, but like not normally. So.
All right, folks, what do you think of that? All right, we have a couple minutes before the news. Let me discuss a couple of things here. Maybe Maddie can help us. All right. As you know, we give away a birthday cake or an anniversary cake every month on the Open Mic Show. Right now, we are taking July birthdays and anniversaries. If you want someone to have a free 7-inch cake from LBD's Second Generation Italian Bakery, 140 South Main Street in Bradford, all you have to do is call this program and wish someone a happy birthday or a couple a happy anniversary. And so you just call 978-374-1900. We put the name in the hat and we draw it the last Monday of the month. So I ask Maddie, do you know anyone having a birthday in July or a couple having an anniversary that would like to be entered into the contest?
And just anyone in July?
Anyone who's having a birthday, we ask people to be honest about that. Anyone who's having a birthday or a couple having an anniversary.
Yeah, I know my cousin's having a birthday in July, actually.
All right. What's your cousin's name?
Michael Karen.
Michael. All right. Chris, would you mind writing down our entry, our first entry of the week for a free 7-inch birthday cake, a choice of vanilla or chocolate. Michael Karen will be added to the recipient list, and we'll draw the name the last Monday of the month. So that's your cousin?
Yeah.
All right. Any others? An anniversary?
Okay, let me think.
I
don't think so.
All right, we put her on the spot, but we got a cake entry, and you too can enter the contest. You can nominate yourself if it's your birthday in July or it's your anniversary in July. But you know what? Think about it. One of your neighbors, you put them in the contest, and if they win, well, they have to invite you over, right? So you want a free piece of cake, right? So put your neighbors in the contest. 978-374-1900. I should point out that if you want to send me a news tip or you have a comment but you're shy, you can do that by email tcoco, T-C-O-C-O, at whav.net. You can also use the message board below the TV screen. I don't see anything there right now. Below the TV screen at whav.net. But if you want to enter a contest, then you have to talk to me. It's just a little bit more work, but it's not bad at all, I would say. So 978-374-1900. Have you heard yourself yet on WHAV? Have you heard your community spotlight?
No. Well, when he replayed it for me in the room, but I never went back and listened.
So have you told your family about it?
Yeah, I did.
All right, are they listening? You're on, I don't know, about... It's in a rotation, folks, so maybe every 4 or 5 times. It runs a quarter past every hour, 24 hours a day.
A week or something?
Well, it depends on the spot. I think you did Farmers Market.
Mark emailed it to me, so I think
That's right. So you did Farmers Market, and so, well, we want people to listen to WHAV, but Farmers Market opens this Saturday, folks. This Saturday, down on Ginty Boulevard, near Bailey Boulevard, next to the police station. So Farmers Market opens this Saturday at, is it 9? Would you remember? 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., was it? All right, so listen to WHAV and you'll hear Maddie Karen talk to you about that. Maddie, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Stay right there. Chris is telling me it has to break, and I'm going to obey him this week. We're going to take a break for local news with News Director Dana Esmel. National news from FSN, local weather that's specific to the Merrimack Valley, because we all know we're different than those Boston stations. All right, and then we'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show and guest Dan McGraw. Take it away, Chris.
Open Mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 7:01.
WHAV Merrimack Valley. WHAV is a not-for-profit service of Public Media of New England Incorporated. It's heard on 1640 AM, the web, at whav.net and participating cable television stations.
Here's what's happening in local news. A mayoral summit of sorts with state transportation and education leaders will come to downtown Haverhill Wednesday. The city of Haverhill will play host Wednesday to Massachusetts Secretary of Transportation Stephanie Pollack, Secretary of Education James Pizer, and a number of mayors from across the state to, quote, discuss the best ways to improve the quality of transportation and education, end quote. A monthly meeting of the Massachusetts Mayors Association will be convened by Haverhill Mayor James J. Fiorentini, Association President, at 9 a.m. Wednesday at 90 Washington Street, Haverhill. Quote, these are vital issues that need immediate attention and action, and all of our cities must work closely with the state to advance a common agenda to build strong communities and a stronger economy, Fiorentini said. So far this year, the mayors have met with Governor Charles D. Baker, House Speaker Robert DeLeo, Senate President Stanley Rosenberg, Attorney General Maura Healey, and other top officials, according to Fiorentini. A Haverhill man is facing charges of sexual assault against a minor after his arrest by Haverhill police on a warrant Friday. According to police, Byron Barry, 46, of 72 River Street, Unit 10, Haverhill, was arrested at 9:09 a.m. Friday at his home. Under the warrant, he is charged with aggravated rape and indecent assault and battery on a child. He was due to be arraigned on the charges in Haverhill District Court. A Haverhill man accused of exposing himself is due to be arraigned in District Court after his arrest Friday night. Haverhill police report Taylor S. Matkovic, 22, of 231 Washington Street, Haverhill, was arrested at 9:48 p.m. Friday at 217 Lincoln Avenue. He was charged with a single count of open and gross lewdness. 2 Haverhill motorists are due in court to face drunk driving charges following separate arrests by police on Sunday. Haverhill police report Michael D. Mooney, 22, of 402 Groveland Street, Haverhill, occupation listed as a, quote, parking enforcement officer, was arrested at 4:57 a.m. Sunday at 64 Franklin Street. He was charged with operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor and reckless operation of a motor vehicle. Also, Martin Vega, 34, of 4 Observatory Avenue, Apartment 1, Haverhill, was arrested at 6:59 p.m. Sunday at 284 Winter Street. He was charged with operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor and unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle. 2 Haverhill men are facing assault and other charges after their arrests in connection with separate disturbance investigations. According to Haverhill Police, Keith Martin, 31, of 3 Angel Avenue, Haverhill, was arrested at 12:40 a.m. Sunday at his home. He was charged with 3 counts of assault with a dangerous weapon and malicious destruction of property. Earlier last weekend, police arrested Miguel Gregorianis, 27, of 63 Fifth Avenue, first floor, Haverhill, on a probation violation warrant at 7:30 a.m. Friday at Main and Winter Streets. Under the warrant, he is charged with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, idle and disorderly, and malicious damage under $250. In other police news, a Haverhill man arrested on a warrant Friday evening is due to be arraigned in district court on burglary-related charges. Haverhill police report Peter J. DaCosta, 33, of 48 Dudley Street, Haverhill, was arrested at 8:06 p.m. Friday on Winter Street. Under the arrest warrant, he is charged with breaking and entering, larceny, and attempt to commit a crime. Massachusetts State Police have released the identity of a woman killed late Saturday afternoon in a single-car rollover crash on Interstate 95 in Georgetown. The woman, identified by State Police as Lizbeth Rodriguez, 46, of Lynn, was a passenger in a car driven by a 48-year-old Lynn man. She was transported to Beverly Hospital, where she was subsequently pronounced dead. The driver, whose identity has yet to be released, was also taken to Beverly Hospital for treatment of minor injuries. A preliminary investigation by state police indicates the driver was traveling southbound in a 1994 Toyota Corolla when he lost control of the vehicle, causing it to roll over and crash in the roadway. The accident took place south of Exit 54 in Georgetown. The cause of the crash is under investigation with assistance from the State Police Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Section and the State Police Crime Scene Services Section. No charges were filed. Georgetown Fire and EMS and personnel from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation assisted state police at the scene. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Dana Esmail.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. The Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras has put forward a renewed set of proposals to its creditors ahead of an emergency summit of Eurozone leaders in Brussels. After 5 months of deadlock, Greece's creditors now say the proposals are heading in the right direction. But if no agreement is made, Greece could default on its debts and potentially leave the single currency euro. Apple has dropped plans to not compensate artists during a free trial period for its new music streaming service. The about turn followed an open letter from singer Taylor Swift, in which she accused the company of being unfair to musicians. Kevin McAleese has more.
The artist behind the hit Shake It Off did just that to Apple, which was forced to rethink its approach to its new streaming service. The 25-year-old attacked the company's payment policy over its upcoming project Apple Music as shocking and disappointing. Apple has now reversed its policy over the free 3-month trial period. In response to Swift's outcry, a senior boss at Apple tweeted that the company will now pay artists for streaming, even during customers' free trial period. Customers will pay $10 a month for the service, which is due to launch at the end of June.
A United Nations report has found that both Israelis and Palestinians committed war crimes during last summer's conflict in Gaza. More than 2,200 Palestinians and almost 70 Israelis died during the 50-day war. Nick Harper reports from UN headquarters in New York.
The long-awaited report was instantly dismissed by Israel, the country's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calling it biased, politically motivated and morally flawed. Hamas, the militant group in control of Gaza, welcomed parts of the report, but said its conclusions were equal between the victim and the executioner. The investigation by the UN Human Rights Council found there was evidence of serious violations by both sides, calling the scale of the devastation unprecedented. Israel denied the finding that its strong military response, some 6,500 airstrikes on Gaza, was disproportionate.
A new Europe-wide police team is being established to track down and block social media accounts linked to the Islamic State group. The European police agency Europol will work with social media companies to trace those accounts and aim to shut them down within 2 hours of being created. Dan Whitehead reports.
Figures suggest there are at least 46,000 Twitter accounts linked to IS, predominantly aimed at recruiting new members. Islamic State is known for its mass use of social media, not only to spread its message but to recruit new members, many of whom are vulnerable young people. Many of the official IS accounts are run from inside Syria and Iraq, but their tweets are multiplied when spread by the thousands of supporters in other countries.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with Wave Weather. Now we're going to go through tonight, clear to partly cloudy. There could be some coastal fog, lows in the low 60s. Now Tuesday, there might be a little sun to start the day off, but a cold front will be marching in from the west. We'll see some showers and thunderstorms, especially in the afternoon. Some of these could be pretty strong too. Highs will be around 85. Tuesday night, showers and storms will end early. We'll clear out after that, drop to around 60. And then we got sunshine for Wednesday with a high in the upper 70s. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre, your next Wave Weather in 30 minutes.
Phil Christie here. Last year, WHAV helped local nonprofits by airing 8,780 community spotlight messages. Only local radio can bring you this level of public service, but only WHAV does.
Open mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
And welcome back to the Open Mic Show, a 50-year staple of democracy in the Merrimack Valley. This hour of Open Mic being brought to you by Haverhill Bank, just one bank. In the studio with me is Dan McGraw of Haverhill. And if you haven't been paying attention, listeners and viewers, Dan appeared before the Haverhill City Council a couple weeks ago, and he is proposing a charter initiative, that's the official term, to change the form of Haverhill city government from Type A, which is Plan A, that I talked to you about a moment ago, listeners, with a strong mayor and very few confirming appointments by the city council, and no particular representation by neighborhood, rather all at-large city councilors. In his words, Dan said he wanted more of a representational democracy. So welcome, Dan McGraw.
Hey.
Have you...
Thank you.
Have you looked into the process for creating a charter commission, or are you looking at taking a different approach?
Yes, I have looked into the process. I think the
laugh suggests to me that it's a big process.
Well, I think it's all in how you look at it. If I were to look at it that Dan McGraw had to do it, then I think I'd feel a little overwhelmed. But if I feel like I have you to help me, and the people in the studio here to help me, and other people that are running for city council that might be interested in this, I think we could, many hands could make light work. And so I'm really grateful that you're asking me to come on the show so that listeners to your program and viewers at HCTV, HC Media, who share the desire to have ward-based representation in addition to a all-at-large city council could join together as a group. The process for a petition to the city council is to gather 10% of the signatures of the voters.
10% of registered voters.
10% of registered voters.
How many is that?
It's over 40,000 registered voters. I don't know how many actually vote.
Haverhill actually has 40,000 registered voters?
Yeah.
That's a pretty high percentage, actually.
Isn't that huge? Because there's only 60,000 people in Haverhill.
Now, I can tell you that I know from very personal experience that they don't all vote, because in a certain Senate election that shall remain nameless, only 9% of you came out.
You mean the one in 2012 where you ran?
For state Senate. I won every precinct in Haverhill, but unfortunately, 9% of a large city is still smaller than 50% of some small towns.
Yeah.
So
you came on Perspectives and interviewed very well, and you definitely had my support.
Well, thank you very much. He says that now, right? No, I'm kidding.
You were a toss-up between. Yeah, it was a toss-up between you and Kathleen. You and I talked about this very frankly beforehand.
Yes, we did speak very, very frankly about it, and in fact, after, and I said I would, but after the nomination process, I did endorse the Democratic nominee. I will say I have had reservations about it since, but that's for another show. But in any event, let's talk about charter change. Now, you focus specifically on having councilors by ward. What about something we've heard many times before, that perhaps the term of the mayor should be 4 years and not 2? Is that a concern of yours? Or are there any other parts of city government that you think might want to be captured in this charter effort?
Well, they probably should hire you as their main consultant, I would think.
I don't do political consulting. There's no friends and a lot of enemies in that kind of job. All right. Well, because I'm hoping he's watching or listening. But Steve Sardella, about 30 years ago, went all the way through the process, if my memory serves, and I think I believe the result is a charter commission that was voted down by the voters. Now, can you refresh my memory?
There are two things, I think. There's a 10% process where you can have a petition for a single issue, I believe, and 15% if you want charter commission, which opens up all of city government and allows for a completely review of many different aspects of city government.
So you're not advocating for the charter commission then, which means this is kind of like the constitutional convention where you don't know what they'll come back with. You're looking for a single issue. Or you're open to it.
Well, I think there's a number. I've spoken to the mayor about this, and I've spoken with some of the members of the city council about this. I'm open to a charter commission. I think it would be a wonderful thing. Again, it's a very political animal because people on the charter commission have to run and be voted in. So again, democracy is a word here in the U.S. that has almost a saintly kind of quality to it. But I think a lot of people like me who didn't really have much of an understanding of democracy did not understand that democracy can be a kind of control by the majority, and it actually suppresses the minority vote.
Now, who was it? I'm going to think it was Winston Churchill, but maybe you know, and you can correct me, or one of our listeners. I think it was Winston Churchill, and I'm going to paraphrase. I don't remember it said, but democracy is an awful form of government. It's terrible, difficult to work with, hard to find consensus, and it's difficult in general, but it's the best system we have.
Well, but it has to be balanced by a constitutional republic. Democracy has to be contained by law, the rule of law. And the rule of law needs to be founded in principles of justice and fairness, liberty and free will, things that were in our Declaration of Independence. Democracy alone can be like what we had when we had segregation, in which there was a majority of people who created laws for people of a certain class and a certain race that really marginalized them. So
this is the tyranny of the majority.
The tyranny of the majority.
As our founders warned us about, the founders of this country. We have to take a brief break. Chris was surprised, and I'm actually almost on schedule tonight. We're taking a brief break for Community Spotlight. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Open Mic Show and Dan McGraw discussing a charter change in the city of Haverhill.
Open Mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
Try listening to WHAV in your car or anywhere on your mobile phone. For fast access, visit whav.net.
Community Spotlight is brought to you by Haverhill Bank. Haverhill Bank is a generous supporter of the area's civic and cultural programs.
That's all it takes is just one bank. Haverhill Bank. Community Spotlight.
The Haverhill Council on Aging is hosting a 4th of July celebration with jazz musician Clyde Wheaton, Wednesday, July 1st at 1 p.m. at the Citizens Center, 10 Welcome Street. Wheatley developed an appetite for the music of Benny Goodman, Artie Shaw, Stan Getz, and others at a young age. And he's developed an original, personal, and accessible live solo performance style. Lunch will be provided by Chicken Connection. Tickets are $8. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at whav.net or email news@whav.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, this is Mark LeBang.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Open mic show. Thank you, Chris, for bringing that up. Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. This hour of Open Mic being brought to you by Haverhill Bank. Just one bank. Okay, again, if you're just tuning in, Dan McGraw is with us. And what ward do you live in?
Councillor Basic actually clarified which ward I live in. I thought I lived in Ward 1, but he said that I live in Ward 2, and I looked it up.
You're adjacent.
That's kind of
yeah,
how...
well, that's off River Street, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. You know your stuff, too.
I walked every street in this city.
Wow.
But, yeah, actually, now, that area, again, it's analogous to Ward 1, so I can see that. Now, I was telling the listeners earlier, and let me just run this by you, see what you think. Because you were telling me a story about how some people perceive what you're doing, if I may paraphrase you, is perhaps racist. And I will tell you that I don't agree with that philosophy, because I also lived in Ward 1, and I found Ward 1 was the dumping ground for everything undesirable. And the reason why Ward 1 could be used that way is because there were no city councilors from Ward 1, and although I'm a bit of a complainer, so sometimes I might get the ear of a city councilor, and I will say, pardon my digression, Bill Masick in a previous life was a realtor and a builder. And he did build some homes in Ward 1, so I do think he was responsive to the concerns of Ward 1. But there were many years when he wasn't on the council. He was on there once, left, and then he came back. And I would say that in the in-between years, no matter what it was, and the history repeats itself, and whether you agree or disagree with medical marijuana, I don't think it's any surprise that it was proposed for Ward 1, because I think people calculate, well, those aren't organized and there's no city council there, so we probably got a free ride. We could put in a hazardous waste facility in Ward 1 and it would be approved. And I believe that to be true. I think Ward 1 has needed some type of representation, whether formally as a ward councilor or informally a neighborhood representative. Is that what you've been running into? Have you been?
Well, my story with this is that I moved away to Methuen for a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and then I came back to Haverhill and I re-registered as a voter. And it was the city clerk that told me where I would vote. And I said, oh, lovely, I was really excited. And I said, who's my ward councilor? And she goes, there are no ward councilors. All councilors serve at large. And for me, that was an awakening for me. Because as a kid, I was raised with the idea that we live in a representative democracy. And then as a kind of an armchair patriot, I like to debate online these kinds of issues around politics and economics. And I learned this concept that democracies are like two wolves and a chicken, and the vote goes to the majority on what's for dinner. And that a republic is a rule of law that restrains the democracy and says the majority rules here, but dinner cannot be chicken.
Very good. Very good analogy.
So we need that. We need the voice of the majority, because we know by history that a majority can be unfair to a minority. And I think that's where the critique of racism came in when I was discussing this with some of the city councilors, that they told me that my ideas were would break the community along racial lines, because the largest percentage of racial minorities, people from the Caribbean or African Americans, live primarily in wards 1, 2, and 3 in the inner city. And that asking for representation by ward would make for a very divisive city council, and that it would make for backroom deals. Quid pro quo, I will give you this if you give me that. Whereas when I spoke before City Council, Councilor Masick said, we have a City Council now which is all at large. It works very well. We all agree here. We are one for all and all for one. The problem is that when I have spoken to the City Council or to the President of the City Council, I may have gotten some off-the-record kind of assent for the position of ward-based city councilors in addition to at-large city councilors, but not a real kind of strong support on the table. And again, what Councillor Masick said was that, and Councillor Barrett said, it will be divisive to the city, and that people will be advocating for their own ward and the interests of their own ward, and then there will be quid pro quo kinds of decisions made among the city council. If you give me this, then I'll give you that, and that right now that there are no backroom deals made. And I thought that was, I was concerned about that, because I like the idea of diversity. I like the idea of plurality. I like the idea of different people, different individuals speaking their own mind from their own perspective and advocating for their own perspective, their own position. I don't really want homogeneity. I don't want everybody to be the same.
I think Bill Masick made a very good argument, but it is not the only argument, and you're making another one. I can see his point, and like any other counselor who holds that position, I can understand that right now they feel that if one side is pulling against another side, that they'll be dealing. However, there's a couple things that I think change
How about this in a marriage then, you know? I'll be the boss, and it'll work much more smoothly for us.
Actually, you know, Mussolini, it did work for a while. The trains ran on time and there was bread.
Yeah.
But we had...
It's much more smooth because you're going with whatever I say.
But here's
how dare you want to have an opinion in this relationship? And how dare you want an equivalent, equal position in this relationship? And what if your position is different than mine? What will I do then?
But here's what I'm thinking, and I wonder what our listeners think, and I don't know how much time you have, because we're almost out of this time, but if you can stay for another segment, we'll invite some callers, too.
I'd be delighted to stay.
So, folks, 978-374-1900. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Let me offer a perspective. It may very well be true that someone in Ward 2 wants new sidewalks and maybe some street signs or better street lighting. And it may be true that someone in Ward 6 would like to control traffic flow going to the New Hampshire border. And does that mean that there will be some bickering somewhere? But you know, it very well may do that, but there are two things that are going to constrain it. We still have a mayor who can veto any bill coming out of council. And we still have, we'll still have at-large councilors, usually in a mix, that will help soften that.
But the mayor has been very receptive to this idea.
Well, that's good to hear. I have to say, there's a lot that I like about it. In the end, after all, it's debate. I'm sure there'll be debates and there'll be more stories on the radio. Maybe then I'll change my mind, but my initial opinion is that when I lived in Ward 1 for about I'm losing track of time, maybe 20 years, and I lived in Ward 1, I found that the inner city was the dumping ground for anything Bradford didn't want. And let's face it, folks, there is a little bit of a divide between how Bradford residents feel about the other side of the river and vice versa. And maybe it isn't such a bad thing that Bradford pulls for some street work, as it did in the Middlesex Street area. I'm a little bit over time. I'm just going to tease this, and we'll continue after the top of the after the weather. But you know, Bradford had one low-income district in the jargon and neighborhood improvement program area, and they fought, and a lot of city councilors have come from Bradford. They fought to put in new sidewalks, new streets, trees, better lighting, and so on for community development block grant money. And you know what? That one area of Bradford along the river suddenly became ineligible for more federal funds because it actually worked. Yep. They actually, so one person started painting their house because the new sidewalk went in, and the next person decided to paint their fence and maybe work on those shutters or put on a new roof, and it worked. And that's how it is. But you know, it is actually illegal under federal law to make a neighborhood poor. Mm-hmm. And Ward 1 is intentionally poor. We put our homeless shelters there, all in one spot, 5 of them, not one in Bradford and one in Riverside and one maybe near the Methuen line. We put them all in Ward 1. YMCA housing, that's low income, all in Ward 1. I'm not opposed to the YMCA, but now we're adding 5 homeless shelters, the Y. Oh, and then there's the Griffin White Home. That's Ward 1. Mm-hmm. We are lowering the average income. Yet we're filling a need. We absolutely must meet the needs of the poor and the elderly and the homeless. I agree with that. But does it all have to be in Ward 1? Because Ward 1 is now permanently eligible for federal community development block grants because the income is so low. And we put it all there intentionally, and that's actually illegal. We'll be back with more of the Open Mic Show after weather.
Open Mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 7:35.
This is listener-supported community radio, WHAV. WHAV is the Merrimack Valley's Pacifica affiliate.
Catch the wave!
The most trusted man in America, news anchor Walter Cronkite, once said, "It is absolutely essential in a democracy to have competition in the media, a lot of competition." That sentiment is one of the driving forces behind WHAV's expanded local news effort. This is News Director Dana Esmel inviting you to listen to my hourly weekday newscasts right here on WHAV. You'll also find the area's most comprehensive local news reporting at whav.net on your computer or smartphone. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free.
And that's the way it is.
Wave weather!
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with wave weather. Now we're going to go through tonight, clear to partly cloudy. There could be some coastal fog, lows in the low 60s. Now Tuesday, there might be a little sun to start the day off, but a cold front will be marching in from the west. We'll see some showers and thunderstorms, especially in the afternoon. Some of these could be pretty strong too. Highs will be around 85. Tuesday night, showers and storms will end early. We'll clear out after that, drop to around 60. And then we got sunshine for Wednesday with a high in the upper 70s. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin B. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. This hour of Open Mic is being brought to you by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Smart companies, choose the Merrimack Valley. All right, well, you heard my blistering opinion, I guess. Do you see any of that make sense in your arguments for ward representation?
Well, I had not thought of or heard of the intentionality. But it does go back to my idea that law should be founded in justice and fairness. And when you said that it's illegal to intentionally make a neighborhood poor, to me what that said was that the federal law was based on the principle of justice and fairness. And I know Arthur Hurley in the HUD office, the CDBG, is in charge of the federal block grants.
Oh, Andrew.
Andrew, sorry.
That's right. No, it's fine.
Thank you, Andrew.
He is indeed.
He's in charge of the federal block grants, and I've had a chance to talk to him a little bit as I've kind of roamed the halls of City Hall, and people get nervous now that I'm wandering the halls. Like, they look at me in this kind of like suspicious way, and they seem like defensive and that sort of thing. But Andrew's been very kind to me and explained how actually the HUD money has actually decreased by 25% in real terms, in real money, by 25% from 1974 during the Ford administration to what it is now. It used to be like $1.25 million.
That's absolutely true, because when I was first a reporter, a lot of people don't know where it comes from. The change took place, I think, during the Nixon administration. But what we now use for community development block grants actually replaced the urban renewal programs. The federal government once paid for what they called slum clearance and blight removal. And community development block grants try to achieve the same thing without knocking down buildings. But, as you know, the government is getting tighter and tighter and tighter, so that money is getting smaller and smaller. But there's for conservatives out there, you might actually agree, because you might think, oh, well, Tim's a conservative now. But here's why you might agree with the federal government's rule about making a neighborhood poor. Because if you make it poor, then it continues to be eligible for taxpayer money. So if you want a conservative reason to side with a liberal principle, there's one. And that's the problem with that. But it could also be true. In Ward Hill several years ago, many years ago now, folks, you'll all remember SRS, Solvent Recovery Services. They wanted to build a hazardous waste treatment facility right on the banks of the Merrimack River here in Ward Hill. If this neighborhood, if this area of the city weren't so well represented, that plant would be here. And the only reason it wasn't proposed for a place like Ward 1 is it doesn't have the highway access and the utilities that it needs. But if Bradford had the composition of Ward 1, they would be a hazardous waste reprocessing facility here. And that is why I agree with you that if not done as a charter change, then perhaps done by stronger neighborhood associations. Have you looked at neighborhood associations? There used to be many. I don't know that there's any that are active. Andrew Hurley in the CDBG office, the HUD office, has the burden of his office to create those kind of agencies, those kind of groups. And actually, I think it's June 24th, there's going to be a meeting hosted by the Salvation Army on Main Street, I believe. So this is 2 days from now.
Is that right?
This is the 22nd.
Or is it the 30th? I think it might be the 30th. I think it's the day. I think it's the 30th.
Okay.
There's going to be a meeting, and it's headed up by a very active Latina woman who I guess is quite bright and very articulate, and they work with the CDBG, the Community Development Building Grant, block grant. Okay. It's in City Hall, but it's actually federally funded. The staff is actually federally funded, but you can find it in City Hall. Is actually working with communities in these low and moderate income communities, and they're not all. It's the percentage of race is higher there, but it's there's a large percentage of Anglo-American people in that area. But
Haverhill generally has actually a rather small minority population as defined by the federal government.
I think it's 11%.
It's relatively small to population.
Right.
So most of what we're talking about in these neighborhoods, and I keep going to Ward 1 and maybe Ward 2, most of these, we're talking about average working class citizens who don't have the representation to keep undesirable building commercial industrial projects out of their neighborhoods. Across the street from where I lived on Primrose Street, and City Councilor Masick really fought to solve this problem, but he ultimately was unsuccessful. Across the street from my house was a large empty lot that was being used to store building debris. I mean, how would you like that on your front lawn on Colby Street in Bradford? It wouldn't happen on Colby Street. Why could it happen on Primrose Street?
Let's not pick on Bradford. There's some very, very nice Bill.
I use that as, and I'm not picking on Bradford. I agree, but why not Riverside? Why not East Broadway?
Right. Well, that's where all your voters are. It's your middle class and upper middle class people, which tend to be, by and large, Anglo-American. That's your largest voting bloc. Actually, your low-income minorities do not vote. So to get low-income minorities to vote for their own interests, to organize to get this 10 or 15%, to get a city charter, we would need 15%. I think you have a caller, actually.
Chris, okay, let's go to the phones. You are. Well, first I got to give this to Dan. You are on the Open Mic Show.
I'm the caller.
Yes, can I?
How you doing, Tim?
Hi there.
You didn't recognize me at first, though, huh?
No, actually, I can barely hear you. Chris?
I'm on your end. I brought up on mine.
Oh, that's why. All right. I put you on my side, but Chris has you on his. So, so this is a regular caller to the Open Mic Show. So, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm wondering that if we did have a city council that was divided up into, say, ward representation like that, would that impact the committee assignments that the city councilors have?
That's a good question. What do you think of that, Dan, about council is broken up into different committees? Do you think that would have a positive or a negative or any change at all to?
Actually, I'm amateur. My background is in human services. I've had a council.
I'm not hearing Dan.
Oh, you can't. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me a little better now?
That's a little better, yep.
Okay, sorry. I'm an amateur, and so I'm really just looking at the issue of justice in terms of equal representation under the law. But I think that, you're intuiting something that's very has very big implications that of course the committee assignments would change and the representation on those committees would change, and I think we'd see a lot of different opinions, and that's what I'm looking for is plurality and diversity of opinion, and you know, you can make that divisive in a negative way, or you can make that divisive in a positive way, and I you know, I like for everybody to have a voice and a seat at the table and representation and self-determination. So I think you should develop that. I think it'd be cool if you develop that idea that what's the implication that you're seeing from this discussion?
Hey, Brian, actually, you have a personal story that actually might very well help illustrate the point I was making. Are you still there, Brian?
Yeah, I'm still there.
I just heard a click. Your former home on School Street came under a demolition order. Do you think there are houses in other wards? I think that's Ward 1, isn't it? Do you think there...
It was Ward 3, Precinct 2.
Okay, so again, 1, 2, 3, as Dan said. Do you think that there are houses that were in similar shape on... I won't pick on Bradford, Upper Main Street or Hilldale that didn't get put on the demolition list because they were in better neighborhoods?
I couldn't say.
All right.
I couldn't say because there were 5 of them with the initial media hype, and 2 of them were in my neighborhood. There was one on Cypress Street, mine on School Street, and but then over on Primrose. Now, didn't they fix that one up nice? And they had one down off of River Street, I think, Margin or Marjorie, something like that.
Well, that's near where Dan lives. I hadn't actually thought about this until your call, but I do think that there's almost a blaming that goes on in city government that says those poor neighborhoods are our problems, and we're going to help them by doing tough love. We're going to order them to fix up those properties, or we're going to tear them down. And I somehow...
If I had the money, I would have.
and well, here's the other problem, is that in what you may very well fit the demographic that Dan is talking about, because Dan, you don't know this, but Brian is blind. His wife, who passed away recently, had multiple sclerosis and was also blind, and so it's not just poor people. It's I don't think it would be a good idea to have Brian up on a ladder fixing his house. Do you, Brian?
Well, no, I'm not very good at it, you know.
But
and that's it. Not because of the blindness, but because I'm just not good at it, and so I would have to pay somebody, and that's why programs like Rebuilding Together are terrific. You know, because they come around, albeit once a year, but they've been very helpful to many people in the area.
Well, that's very good, and I guess that goes back to my original point that maybe sometimes there are other ways to achieve the same goals, like neighborhood associations and groups like Rebuilding Together. Maybe there are alternatives, and between now and whenever this debate may occur, I may be won over if I see some progress. But right now, I think you got a good question about committee assignments. Probably and then necessarily things would change. I suppose if a councilor represented a particular district that had environmental concerns, that might be on the public grounds committee. A good point, Brian. I think you made a good point. All right. Anything else in your mind, Brian?
No, I don't think so. I just wanted to ask that question and contribute to the conversation. You haven't been getting any calls tonight anyway.
Well, I find our listeners are very polite.
Getting any calls tonight anyway.
Well, I find our listeners are very polite. They don't like to interrupt, but they should. But anyway, thank you very much, Brian.
Okay, Tim.
All right.
And I'm still looking for that picture, if you can ever come up with it.
Oh, let me write another note to myself. I don't know what I did with the last one. All right, thank you, Brian.
That there's a picture floating around, several pictures of that old house that they have since torn down, and somebody captured a picture of it right as it was torn down.
Wow.
Now,
All right,
my computer just died, and so I don't have that anymore, and I'm hoping that Tim does.
All right, let me write it again. I probably write this every now and then I'm going to make sure I save this one. I'm going to look and see if I have those. Thank you, Brian.
All right.
Thank you for calling in.
Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Now, it's another example, and I think you raised a good question. It probably, you would, if a particular neighborhood had certain concerns, whether they be environment or water and wastewater, maybe that would affect committee assignments. Not a bad choice. Well, I really appreciate your coming on the program and discussing some of these things. How can people help you? Do you need help with petitions or discussion? Are you planning any forums?
The City Council is, the vote is this fall, I believe, and there's a number of new faces or old faces that are returning that want to run again. There's a gentleman by the name of Raul Diaz, who has the interests of the Latino population at heart, and so of course he has the inner city interest at heart in giving them a voice. Phil Brown, who's run before, who's a history teacher at the high school and a guy of great integrity, I think, is interested in ward councilors, and so there, and I do host a TV show, and at HCTV. I mean, yeah, HCTV, right. HC Media, and I think Darlene Beal would be interested in probably hosting a debate forum for the city councilors, and I think the ward councilor at-large council could be discussed. Bill Ryan was very open to the idea. He said there's been a number of different models in the history of Haverhill, and there have been a number of different models across the state. So I think there's room for discussion, and I think some people think, well, we're stuck with 9 city councilors, and we could have 4 at-large city councilors and 7 ward councilors. So we could expand it to 11, or we can have whatever number.
So you could achieve a mix of at-large and ward councilors.
You could, and I don't think that. And so anyway, the people there's some new people on the block, new kids on the block, and they're very excited about this idea of bringing representation to people who are not represented, and it's not. There's no. The low-income, moderate low-income people and minorities are not turning out to vote in local politics. They are. It's the upper income people who vote. And so that's where your city councilors come from. That's who your city councilors appeal to. That's their constituency, is the people that put them in office.
That's right.
And so, it's not the low income, it's not the minorities that put them into office. They don't have an obligation to them. I think they feel that they do represent the inner city, and I think they, at least that's what they've said. So, but yes, there are people, I'm just one voice, I'm one guy. I spoke at city council about it. You saw it, I guess, on the cable access TV. It was covered in the Eagle Tribune in a very fair article.
No, we had a reporter cover the council meeting, and we had it on the news. We also did an advance the day before the council meeting, because I think that's part of democracy too. It's not enough to tell people what happened after the fact. They need to know that it's taking place, so perhaps if they're interested in getting involved, they can go to the meeting.
Yep.
So our news department feels very strongly about getting the news out before it before it's a settled issue.
Well, you're doing a real service here, you know. I mean, again, this is just one person's voice. I'm not a professional.
I have an invitation for you.
Thank you.
And here it is. Election night coverage on WHAV in November, after not the primary but the final. I'd like to have you on the program. You can feel free to remind me between now and then. I'd like to have you on the program, and let's just see if there are changes in the makeup of the city council.
That's exciting.
Because here's my prediction. There will be no substantive changes to the city council. I hate to say it, but for all the reasons we discussed, low voter turnout and busy lives and busy people, we will not see a substantive change in city government. And then the question is going to come back, if not that way, how will we make these changes? Whether it's, again, I'm not saying we have to change the charter. Maybe there are another way, but I'd like to have you here, election night. And let's look at all the Bradford people who are elected to city council and school committee. No, but I mean, I praise you, Bradford, because you do turn out and vote. Look at the Hunking school vote. You overwhelmed any opposition, and that was good. You are good citizens. You vote. But there are other parts of this city, too.
And they could vote, but they don't. How do we get them excited? I think we get them excited by them having representatives. If I knew, when I re-registered this past fall, if I knew who my ward councilor was, I would have talked to them. My kid wants a skate park, you know, and he wants it to be safe. You know, who do I have to talk to? And nobody on city council really is interested in the issue I have to bring up now, so I don't have any representation on city council for this issue.
So you may very well have proven your point by yourself. So
Right.
it's very, very interesting. Now, there's plenty of room for debate, folks, and I welcome your calls. I know you're being very polite, but feel free to call after the 8 o'clock news with any opinions. Dan will be on his way, but I haven't forced him to commit, but after the show, we'll follow up by email or phone and see about some election coverage together.
I think that'd be fun to discuss that.
Because I'd like to see if people can change it themselves.
And it's a carrot for me to stay involved.
So there we are, challenge to you.
Thank you.
All right. We have a minute because we skipped the break. I finally forced Chris to relent on the break, but because we're non-commercial, so there was no corporate sponsor we really had to do anything for. So
let's hear it for the free press then. Yes,
non-profit, non-commercial.
Yes.
But let me ask you,
how's it coming with the FM?
The FM license was approved by the Federal Communications Commission. It will go on the air at 97.9 FM as soon as we resolve some issues relating to constructing a tower.
Okay.
Let me tell you, that tower would be easier to construct in Ward 1 than it will be where we are trying to put it. So, how's that for putting it into practice?
Okay.
All right. And
well, take advantage of those poor people then.
That's right. We'll
get that tower in there.
But it's actually going to be a minor tower, so I don't think anyone will object. But I appreciate your having you on the program. I look forward to staying in touch and learning more. And folks, watch Perspectives on Channel 22 with Dan McGraw.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, now we can go to break. Thank you.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
It's 8:01.
WHAV Merrimack Valley. WHAV is a not-for-profit service of Public Media of New England, Incorporated. It's heard on 1640 AM, the web at whav.net, and participating cable television stations.
Here's what's happening in local news. No comment from Haverhill City officials Monday on the matter of a Haverhill man facing drunk driving charges in court, whose occupation is listed by police as a, quote, parking enforcement officer, end quote. According to a Haverhill police arrest log, Michael D. Mooney, 22, of 402 Groveland Street, Haverhill, was arrested at 4:57 a.m. Sunday at 64 Franklin Street. He was charged with operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor and reckless operation of a motor vehicle. Quote, "We don't comment of personnel matters," said David Van Dam, Chief of Staff to Mayor James J. Fiorentini. For more details, visit whav.net. 2 Methuen residents and an Andover woman are among 22 people facing drug-related charges in court as the result of a, quote, major anti-drug operation by Lawrence Police Friday. Police seized assorted bags of heroin and just over $4,000 in cash. The investigation and operation was conducted in conjunction with several other law enforcement agencies in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Among those arrested, Farron Dufour, 21, of Methuen, is charged with possession of a Class A drug. Estalin Guerrero, 20, of Methuen, is charged with distribution of a Class D drug and possession of a Class D drug with intent to distribute. Chelsea Bennett, 21, of Andover, is charged with trespassing after notice, knowingly being present where heroin is kept, and giving a false name on arrest. Quote, "Today we sent a message to drug dealers and those who think they can come to our city to purchase narcotics with impunity that we will not tolerate this dangerous and illegal activity," Lawrence Police Chief James Fitzpatrick said. The suspects range in age from 17 to 59 years old. Buyers had come from outside the city and the state to conduct business in Lawrence due to its proximity to major highways and the New Hampshire border, according to Fitzpatrick. Some of the 22 suspects were arraigned Friday, and others will be arraigned this week in Lawrence District Court. A Haverhill man is facing charges of sexual assault against a minor after his arrest by Haverhill police on a warrant Friday. According to police, Byron Barry, 46, of 72 River Street, Unit 10, Haverhill, was arrested at 9:09 a.m. Friday at his home. Under the warrant, he is charged with aggravated rape and indecent assault and battery on a child. He was due to be arraigned on the charges in Haverhill District Court. A Haverhill man accused of exposing himself is due to be arraigned in District Court after his arrest Friday night. Haverhill police report Taylor S. Matkovic, 22, of 231 Washington Street, Haverhill, was arrested at 9:48 p.m. Friday at 217 Lincoln Avenue. He was charged with a single count of open and gross lewdness. 2 Haverhill men are facing assault and other charges after their arrests in connection with separate disturbance investigations. According to Haverhill Police, Keith Martin, 31, of 3 Angel Avenue, Haverhill, was arrested at 12:40 a.m. Sunday at his home. He was charged with 3 counts of assault with a dangerous weapon and malicious destruction of property. Earlier last weekend, police arrested Miguel Gregorianis, 27, of 63 Fifth Avenue, first floor, Haverhill, on a probation violation warrant at 7:30 a.m. Friday at Main and Winter Streets. Under the warrant, he is charged with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, idle and disorderly, and malicious damage under $250. In other police news, a Haverhill man arrested on a warrant Friday evening is due to be arraigned in district court on burglary-related charges. Haverhill police report Peter J. DaCosta, 33, of 48 Dudley Street, Haverhill, was arrested at 8:06 p.m. Friday on Winter Street. Under the arrest warrant, he is charged with breaking and entering, larceny, and attempt to commit a crime. Massachusetts State Police have released the identity of a woman killed late Saturday afternoon in a single-car rollover crash on Interstate 95 in Georgetown. The woman, identified by State Police as Lizbeth Rodriguez, 46, of Lynn, was a passenger in a car driven by a 48-year-old Lynn man. She was transported to Beverly Hospital, where she was subsequently pronounced dead. The driver, whose identity has yet to be released, was also taken to Beverly Hospital for treatment of minor injuries. A preliminary investigation by state police indicates the driver was traveling southbound in a 1994 Toyota Corolla when he lost control of the vehicle, causing it to roll over and crash in the roadway. The accident took place south of Exit 54 in Georgetown. The cause of the crash is under investigation with assistance from the State Police Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Section and the State Police Crime Scene Services Section. No charges were filed. Georgetown Fire and EMS and personnel from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation assisted state police at the scene. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source, and it's always free. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Dana Esmail.
Governor of the U.S. state of South Carolina has joined a diverse group of voices in calling for the removal of the Confederate flag from state capitol grounds. Republican Nikki Haley says it's a symbol of the state's past, not its future. Controversy has been growing over its prominent placement in the wake of last week's shooting at the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, where 21-year-old Dylan Roof allegedly shot and killed 9 African-American victims. The flag represented the U.S. South during the Civil War, and while to some it shows tradition and regional pride, to others it's a symbol of racial oppression. However, Governor Haley says it's time for the flag to go.
Today, we are here in a moment of unity in our state, without ill will, to say it's time to move the flag from the Capitol grounds.
Governor Haley's comments came as it was announced US President Barack Obama will deliver the eulogy at the funeral for Reverend Clementa Pinckney, one of the 9 victims of last week's church shooting in Charleston. A United Nations report has found that both Israel and Gaza committed war crimes during last summer's conflict. More than 2,200 Palestinians and almost 70 Israelis died during the 50-day war. Nick Harper reports from the UN headquarters in New York.
The long-awaited report was instantly dismissed by Israel, the country's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calling it biased, politically motivated and morally flawed. Hamas, the militant group in control of Gaza, welcomed parts of the report, but said its conclusions were equal between the victim and the executioner. The investigation by the UN Human Rights Council found there was evidence of serious violations by both sides, calling the scale of the devastation unprecedented. Israel denied the finding that its strong military response, some 6,500 airstrikes on Gaza, was disproportionate. The UN report, however, was seen as controversial, with its lead investigator quitting during the inquiry, after it came out that he'd previously worked for the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Nick Harper, New York.
The 2 men who broke out of a maximum security prison in the US state of New York 2 weeks ago are believed to be in an area near the jail itself after evidence was discovered in a local cabin. The discoveries breathed new life into the search for Richard Matt and David Sweat, both convicted killers now added to the US Marshal's list of America's 15 most wanted criminals. Lorna Shattuck reports from New York.
Investigators say they believe the 2 escapees spent time at a cabin around 20 miles from the Clinton Correctional Facility, from where they escaped on the 6th of June. Evidence has been recovered near the small town of Mountain View in Franklin County that leads them to believe both men were there, though New York State Police wouldn't confirm reports that it was DNA that had been found. However, items from the cabin have been recovered and are being sent to a laboratory for testing. Lorna Shattuck, New York.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Wave weather.
I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre with Wave Weather. Now we're going to go through tonight, clear to partly cloudy. There could be some coastal fog, lows in the low 60s. Now Tuesday, there might be a little sun to start the day off, but a cold front will be marching in from the west. We'll see some showers and thunderstorms, especially in the afternoon. Some of these could be pretty strong too. Highs will be around 85. Tuesday night, showers and storms will end early. We'll clear out after that, drop to around 60. And then we got sunshine for Wednesday with a high in the upper 70s. I'm WHAV meteorologist Rob St. Pierre. Your next Wave Weather in 30 minutes.
This is Phil Christie. When local news breaks, the wave is there. Only local radio can bring you local news, but only WHAV does.
WHAV, Merrimack Valley. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Welcome back to the Open Mic Show. Last hour was brought to us by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council, and again this hour. So thank you very much to the council. Smart companies choose the Merrimack Valley. All right, that was a great conversation with Dan McGraw, and I know listeners do not like to interrupt, so feel free. You can call 978-374-1900, or you can email me, and perhaps some of you have, and I haven't checked. You can email me at tcoco, T-C-O-C-O, at whav.net. And finally, there is a message board below the TV screen at whav.net. I'm going to check that right now, see if any of you have commented there, and that is another way of communicating with the Open Mic Show. Yes, we are still taking birthday and anniversaries for July. Okay, here is a comment. I agree with Dan. Back in the 70s, water pressure on Lake Street was negligible. The farther up Scotland Hill, the worse it got because the pipe was 40 years old and engineered for significantly fewer residences. They appeared at the council meeting to complain. Marjorie Goodrow's solution was simply not pay the water bill. No local representation means no vested interest in local neighborhood issues. All right, so we had one comment on the website regarding that. Thank you, David. All right, and then I'll try to check email. But again, call and wish someone a happy birthday or a happy anniversary if those events are in July. 978-374-1900. All right, let's try to do two things at once. If I were chewing gum, it would be even harder, but let me see if I can find if you have any comments by email. I don't see any, so feel free to comment on tonight's discussion item, 978-374-1900. The discussion with Dan, though, certainly plays a role in what's happening in city elections. Again, I predict no major changes. I think if former City Council President Hart turns in his nomination papers, he's going to be a formidable contender. And then that means we will have 10 very strong candidates for 9 positions, and so then there will be at least a change possibly there. All right, let's go to the phones. On your side? All right. Jerry from Methuen, you're on the air.
Good evening, Tim. How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Oh, I'm recovering.
All right.
I had quite a siege of congestive heart failure, and
oh, that's right. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I was in the hospital, and then I was in rehab, but now I'm home. And
so rehab you're done with that?
Pardon?
You're done with rehab?
Oh, exercises and things like that.
Okay.
Hey, I admire your previous person, previous interview. He's got a lot of courage, I'll tell you. He's going to need an awful lot of fortitude also, correct?
Yes, I mean, I have to say, we may achieve the same goals in other ways, but I think it's a valid discussion. And you saw it yourself, Jerry. You were working with neighbors who were opposed to an environmental issue in the northern part of Haverhill.
Yes.
And if it weren't for the organization that you got involved with, and City Councilor Masick, I believe, got involved with, those people might very well have a plant,
have an anaerobic digester in their backyard
that they otherwise wouldn't have wanted. So, so you see, we do achieve these things, but you came in and helped organize it. So, so you and Dan.
And there was a big group,
fighters.
and there were people from New Hampshire there, because it was right on the line, if you recall, and there was a lot of impacts. There were really, issues that couldn't be addressed if the facility wanted to site there. But see, there was something that you said relative to this siting process, I think, more or less. You know, Bill Masick, myself, and a number of boards of health led the fight to not let the DEP, the agency I used to work for, abrogate the responsibility of the local boards of health in siting of facilities. So there is another issue here, another problem. For example, in the regulations for citing a hazardous waste site, a sewage treatment plant, an anaerobic digester, a landfill, they've taken away these regulations that Mr. Kimmel, who was the former commissioner of DEP, in promulgating those regulations, he took the local board of health right out of the process.
No, actually, you're right, and we did see that also.
I think that should be repealed, really.
We also saw that happen with, and I understand the reasons it happened, with the Hazardous Waste Facility Site Safety Council. The state found that no community was willing to give up solvents, chemical solvents, but they also weren't willing to host a plant to reprocess them. So,
I can see the potential need for it, but listen, this requirement to have a public hearing before the local boards of health it's been in place since 1876, and
you're right. I think we need to have public input, no matter what.
Positively, initially, you should have. The public should be available, and luckily for the people in southern New Hampshire and also in that section of Haverhill where this facility, this anaerobic digester, was going to be sited, that requirement was still in place. The requirement to have a public hearing before the boards of health, and now it's gone. And guess what? Mr. Kimmel is now a member of a group. He's kind of changed hats. He is now a member of the Union of Concerned Scientists.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
It's kind of, to me, it's kind of comical, really.
Isn't that interesting? Hey, Jerry, can you hold 1 second?
Sure.
Stay right there, because Chris will never forgive me if I miss this break. So we're going to take a 1 minute break for Community Spotlight, but stay right there, okay?
Okay.
Go away, Chris.
Open mic!
Tim Coco and the Open Mic will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900 or email tcoco@whav.net. If you are enjoying this program, please consider making a donation right now. Your donations to not-for-profit WHAV help keep these vital community services on the air. Donate online at www.whav.net.
Stay informed each day with local news, coupled with Pacifica's worldwide coverage. Only local radio can bring you local news, but only WHAV does.
Catch the wave!
Melinda's Garden Moments help gardeners create and maintain a healthy, beautiful garden with ease, inside or out and all year long. This is Melinda Myers, inviting you to tune in every weekday morning, right here on WHAV. You'll learn creative ways to grow your own vegetables and herbs while beautifying your landscape. Eco-friendly lawn care, flower garden design basics, unique container gardens, attracting birds and butterflies to the landscape, and much more. Again, please join me weekday mornings for Melinda's Garden Moment for a very environmentally friendly approach to gardening. Remember, only local radio can bring you this feature opportunity, but only WHAV does.
Community Spotlight!
The Haverhill Council on Aging is sponsoring 2 trips in early July. A Sunday morning brunch cruise with live jazz music aboard the Beauport Princess takes place July 5th from Gloucester. This trip costs $89 and includes transportation to Gloucester, brunch buffet, and cruise. Contact Kathy or Rita at 978-374-2390 for details. The Council's also planning a trip to Foxwoods on Tuesday, July 7th. Cost is $35, includes deluxe motor coach transportation, full buffet lunch, and slot play. Again, for more information, give Kathy or Rita a call, 978-374-2390 for details. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcements, click on the Contact tab at WHAV.net or email news@WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, this is Mark LeMay.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson newsroom, WHAV presents the Open Mic Show with Tim Coco. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900. Or email tcoco@whav.net.
Open Mic being brought to you by the Merrimack Valley Economic Development Council. Smart companies choose the Merrimack Valley. Let's continue our discussion with Jerry. Jerry is very active in environmental causes, and that makes a lot of sense since he spent more than 50 years with what we now know as the Department of Environmental Protection. Thanks, Jerry, for hanging on.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for the accolades. I really appreciate that. But I really admire, as I said, really admire your previous guest because, and I hope he's ready for a long fight. He's got the perseverance and to go forward with this. It's tough though. It's tough. You know that, Tim.
No, absolutely. It's tough when it's really tough when people aren't involved. And unfortunately, sometimes what takes getting them involved is what you noticed on Upper Hilldale Avenue. Put something they don't want in their neighborhood and they'll get involved. But if there was only a way to get them out at other times.
Yeah, there's a lot of apathy, really, isn't there? A lot of apathy amongst the voters. And you can attest to that because, as he stated, the population of Haverhill is approximately what is it, like 50 or 60,000?
Almost 62 now.
62,000.
Oh, it's grown tremendously.
And as you said before, and he said, I think something in the neighborhood of 40,000+ registered voters.
Yet only 9% turnout.
And only 9% voted the last time. So there's a lot of apathy, and it's I think it has to do with, the same old, people neglecting to take a stand or a position, and just because they feel that, number one, the economy doesn't help because in a lot of cases there has to be two people in the family to kind of make ends meet, and
Jerry,
I
think you hit the nail on the head. I actually think it's more an economic problem than a political one.
Yeah.
I think people do care. But unfortunately, as we've seen over the last 30 years, the average working person's income compared to inflation has dropped. And what happened to the jobs we once had that paid good wages, like Western Electric? Where are those 12,000 jobs now?
Outsourced.
And now we're about to see some action in the Congress and the Senate on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I just think the corporations are now running the country. I don't know that I see much hope.
I do. I agree with you totally.
So,
just an example would be, you call somebody with a technical problem with your, I don't care whether it's your computer or whatever, your phone or whatever. You end up talking to somebody in the Philippines. I joke about the time that I called a technical problem with my computer. I traveled all over the world in about 15 minutes because it started at the Philippines and ended up in India. And of all the people that I spoke to,
I bet everyone listening to us has had the same experience.
Yeah, and you know who spoke the best though, and was very communicative, and he was from India, and the English, they did a couple of things good. They left good roads and they left good schools when they were forced out of more or less forced out of India by, what was his name now? Haile Selassie.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, though. I read something maybe over the weekend. The British did do some good, but they did more damage than good.
They exploited.
If you look at what, every problem we have in the Middle East today, you can blame on Great Britain.
Yeah, you look at these movies and books, Blood Diamond, for example.
Well, I mean, the Balfour Declaration after World War I.
Exactly.
So the victor goes the spoils, they say. Yeah. So Britain was the victor, at least representing
and
the
France
Allies.
Too, right?
Right, representing the Allies. Yeah, France had what? Algeria?
They were all colonizing.
Yeah, so they and of course now to this day we have wounds that can't be healed. The Kurds are spread across several countries, so there is no Kurdistan. I don't know how we're ever going to fix the Middle East until we recognize what the British did there that caused all the problems we have.
Yeah.
But I guess that's a story for another day.
Tell me something, Tim. There was no program last Monday?
Last Monday, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this.
No, tell me, because I
just
got out of the hospital and I was looking forward to listening to you.
Just before the broadcast, I'm sure this has happened to many of our listeners. Just before the broadcast, I bent over the wrong way and had a muscle spasm. I went right to the floor, and I had trouble moving.
Oh.
And and of course, some naproxen later. I find that if I can get some muscle relaxants fast enough, Flexeril, and then an anti-inflammatory naproxen, I can prevent it from becoming a lengthy crisis.
Yeah.
But
that's what I took in rehab, because I've had in the past had what do you call it, a lumbar.
Yeah,
herniated disc.
That's right.
And so that because I was laying on my back in the hospital in the rehab, they put me on something called Flexeril or something like that.
That's exactly the thing that works for me.
Yeah, and that worked for me. I find that if I put it off, as I have in the past, like, okay, it hurts, I'll get over it. That's when you start knocking discs out. Because there's too much. Well, obviously, my age, they wouldn't even think of that,
Yeah. So, but that's that's what happened, and unfortunately, we didn't get the word out fast enough. We switched to some music programming. But all in all, I have some shoulder pain now. But all in all, we could have a meeting of all of us who have some back pain or ill to complain about. So we'll see. Jerry, I really appreciate it. I'm afraid we're out of time, though.
Well, thank you very much.
I really appreciate your calling.
I really appreciate it, talking to you. It's glad to be home and listening to your program every Monday night.
Thank you, and I hope you feel better.
I enjoy it, and you have a lot of good guests. And your previous guest tonight, he's got a lot of courage and fortitude. I hope he can, do something.
Well, I think he will.
I hope so.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry.
Good night.
All right, have a great night.
Bye-bye.
All right. So this has been the Open Mic Show. Tune in again next week. Next week we have, of course I don't have it in front of me, we have Ann from the Greater Haverhill Arts Association coming on to talk about some of the things they're doing to bring more art into our lives here. So that's next week on the Open Mic Show, same time, 6:30 Monday night. Have a great night, everyone.
Open Mic!
Join Tim Coco live on the Open Mic again next Monday night at 6:30. The opinions expressed on the Open Mic Show are not necessarily those of WHAV, its underwriters, or affiliated stations. The Open Mic Show came to you from the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom.
It's 8:31.
This spot could have been yours. Support WHAV's local approach with your underwriting. Go to WHAV.net and click on Support to reach thousands of new customers.
Catch the wave!
Hi, I'm meteorologist Gary Best. Do you need to know if it's going to be hot or cold, wet or dry? Well, find out every half hour, 7 days a week with Wave Weather. I'll keep you in touch with up-to-the-minute reports covering the greater Merrimack Valley and beyond. It's WHAV for accurate weather when you want it.